Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There, Day After Show Live. We are here today, somewhere in the middle of Idaho. Both of us are. I'm joined by my new friend, Zach. We met last night at the show in Utah. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good out here on the road to Missoula. Looking forward to another round of Goose nonsense here in a couple of days tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun. And last night was an interesting night. We had the venue switch, and then a lot of interesting stuff about the Great Saltaire, where we saw Goose last night. But I'm curious, Zach. Obviously we were together for most of the night, but what were your thoughts arriving, walking in, and experiencing the venue for the first time?
Oh, I sort of had low expectations, to be honest. 100-year-old barn, sort of dressed up like a mosque maybe, or a
Yeah,
Mormon temple. I wasn't sure what to make of the venue. But I think people were excited to get a chance to still catch a show, new place, new vibes, and so yeah, I think it was a good call on their part to go ahead and make the switch and make the show still happen. So
100%. I said hi to Loomis after the show last night, and he said that based on, there's like for outdoor venues, a lot of them have like an on-site meteorologist who's like monitoring stuff and giving them updates. And apparently by 10 a.m. yesterday, they would have been like completely shut down from like loading in and setting up twice. If at the America First Field Plaza. So it's a good thing that they switched the venue. But yeah, driving up, it was like, this is the only thing for like miles around in the area. Like there's the Great Saltaire, there's Great Salt Lake, and there's highway. There's nothing else in the vicinity. And so it was like, yeah, it's weird. It has these like little towers. Some of them, a couple of people that we met when we walked in were telling us how it's burned down twice.
almost
So
burned down 3 times
fascinating.
last night, Ryan.
Well, Goose had their own hand in that. But it was great. We ended up, we had a pretty good spot, until set break, obviously. But we had a pretty good spot for the night. We were around 5 rows back, right in front of Jeff. Sound was really good while we were there. I'm curious to hear how it was, when you kind of ventured a little further back later in the show. But going in, we talked about this a little yesterday, but what were your kind of expectations about last night's show?
Low, very low.
Fair.
Um, yeah, I just wasn't sure if the production was going to be there, how the sound quality was going to be, how the crowd was going to be,
Sure.
all of those variables that play into the experience in the audience more so than what the band is going to bring to the table. But I was pleasantly surprised. I may be in the minority, but I really thought that first set was pure heat, and I had a great time. So, and second set obviously had some redeemers, but yeah, great time. Exceeded my expectations. Really excited to continue on and catch a couple more and see where the boys are at.
100%, 100%. Well, let's dive into the show here. We were talking about before, the great thing about this venue switch as well is suddenly the 10 p.m. curfew from the field no longer a thing. So there were no time constraints last night. And as we said, like, we don't know what the curfew is at this venue, but people were saying they have like EDM like raves there until like 2 a.m. And it's like there's no noise ordinance because there's nothing around. So nothing's going to stop them if they want to play for a while. So I think I haven't compared it to the other shows on this tour, but I think obviously one of the longer shows, definitely I think the longest second set we've had on this tour. So that was very exciting. But let's dive in here. First couple of songs, Zach, your thoughts on Draconian Meter Maid and Mr. Action.
Oh, I like Draconian Meter Maid. I think it's a kind of a funky, little different tune that has a lot of space for exploration, a little bit of funk, there to be had if they want it. It's fun that Cotter gets a chance to sing and bring his flair to the band right away, and really really be welcomed by the crowd. So that was cool. I was into that right out of the gate. I was pretty psyched. And Mr. Action always delivers. Really great version, I thought. Jeff with a lot of fireworks early, really ripping. So yeah, I like both of those a lot. Really set
Yeah,
the stage. What about
definitely.
you?
Neil's here. Neil, Zach,
Hey,
Neil.
Hey,
He
Zach.
made it.
Have we
Came in
gone
hot.
past how this is the weirdest venue in the history of rock and roll? Or
Well, we talked about it. Nothing for miles around, like kind of
it,
a warehouse.
it's like The Shining, but on the Great Salt Lake, without all the snow and a weird, Middle Eastern feel to it. I don't even, or
Yeah.
not even Middle Eastern, like Eastern Bloc. I don't know, but it's
Well,
a fascinating
yeah,
venue.
totally Eastern Bloc feel. But yeah, you walk in and there's like this like grand staircase. Well, sorry, going back to the venue before we go back to the show. Now that you mention it,
Yeah, sorry, I
so
just derailed the whole thing.
no. But I missed a very important detail about this venue that there's like an upper balcony which kind of is around, the edge, and then there's the floor. And on the floor, you are not allowed to have drinks. You are only allowed to drink on the upper balcony.
Sounds
There
very
are a couple
Utah.
of there are a couple of bars up there. But so as I said, I tweeted this morning. I was like, I think that made for, or maybe it was last night. I think that made for a really like a cool experience, being on the floor, because you didn't have as many people who were getting absolutely hammered,
Which is a
all
bonus.
around you. Nobody
Yeah.
was spilling drinks on you. There was like, also there wasn't like garbage all over the floor at the end of the show. So definite plus. But anyway, back to the show. First couple of songs, I thought Meter Maid was a great way to open the show. Love this song. It's, as I said last week when they played it in Chicago, it's been stuck in my head since I saw it live for the first time. It's like just there, it's burned into my brain forever now. But really nice little jam on this one to get things going. 13 minutes. There were a couple of these great 13-minute jams in the first set. And I thought, being up close, you always get a little more Trevor, because you can hear from his onstage amps as well as the PA. And I thought he was far and away the MVP of last night. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but there were points in the first and the second set where he was just leading the way into some like crazy things and really just playing more aggressively than he does a lot of the time. But I thought Meter Maid it kind of, hinted at that in nice little jam there. And then Mr. Action's Mr. Action. It's always fun. Neil, you got anything to add on these first two?
Yeah. Meter Maid as an opener, cool. That's new. That's never been done, right? Has it been done yet?
I don't think so.
Been pretty close, but I don't think it's ever been in the number one slot. So that's neat. Mr. Action, we do these day after shows. I'm just going to say it every time. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now that I look, the first two times Draconian Meter Maid was played, it was directly after Mr. Action. And last night it came directly before Mr. Action.
Well, we've talked about the formula, right? Like there is a formula. Don't say that it dictates. There is a formula to how they do the first couple songs of the show. This one, follows that formula. Like Meter Maid is somehow in there, which I love because it's very different than all the other songs that get lumped into that kind of openers category. Sure. And then you get Time to Flee in the third slot, so you get a tiny bit of a jam in there. So yeah,
I don't want to skip over this Flea though, because this Flea is really good. Zach, I'm curious your thoughts on this Flea here.
I really like it. I think it brings some joy to the crowd. I think everybody understands that it's time to have a little fun. It's going to be a fun show. I thought Peter really played well for that. Lots of piano, lots of electric piano stuff, and just kind of playing around and just having fun. I don't know. Again, I think that Rick had his chance to shine quite a lot. He was really getting after it. His tone was great last night early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like Neil said, a little bit of jamming, kind of testing the waters a little bit, seeing where everybody wanted to go. And so, yeah, really strong opening segment there.
Yeah, I thought Flea made this kind of pivot out of normal Flea jamming fairly quickly and just kind of entered this like kind of blues rock zone for most of its jam. And I thought it was like a really cool, again, shorter 13 minutes, but it's just showing how consistently well they're playing at this point in the tour. Like we're 11 shows in at this point, something like that. And like they're just hitting that zone so quickly. And, Rick hangs back for the first part of the jam and then just comes forward and leads them into the peak as he does so well. But I thought that blues rock vibe was something kind of unique for this tune, and I really liked it. Neil?
Yeah, just, I think this is indicative of what went on throughout the course of this show, which is not extended jamming, but excellent use of the space that they chose to jam in. And that, I think, is the common thread for this whole entire show. I think there's two ways of looking at it, which is like, I really wish they jammed more, or they made really efficient use of the jamming space that they chose to take. And I think I'm going to go with the latter on that one. And this is indicative of all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Next up, I'm glad you made it today, Neil, because they played Spoon, and you are our number one Spoon fan.
Yeah,
but Inside Out, Your Ocean, Rock the Casbah, nice little segment here. Mutron getting the workout. Love to hear this thing getting a ton of use, but it was all over this Inside Out. Amazing work from Rick there. Your Ocean, I loved. First one of the tour. Hadn't been played since Portland, which is its longest gap in a little while. And then Casbah, Jeb Night.
You can't not do the Casbah at the Great Salt Air, right? Like, it just felt like it fit.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like they could have not done the Casbah, but it was fun.
There was a lot of on the nose here at the Great Salt Air last night. We had this conversation the other day on the pod where it was just like, you take a look at that building and Jeb's going to want to do Casbah. You take a look at the name of the venue. You're going to want to do Zalt. Like, it's all fitting.
Lots going on. Zach, what were your thoughts on Inside Out, Your Ocean, Casbah?
Yeah, I really, the Inside Out was kind of new for me. I wasn't sure what the track was when it first started, but I think I've heard it before. And I enjoyed it. I thought that was a nice little cool down section after the heat. I thought the Casbah was perfectly placed, and I really enjoyed it. One of the more fun moments for me in the show. It's fun when Jeff sings. Both drummers singing a song in the first set was kind of cool. Really spreading the love. So I thought that made sense. Yeah, and Your Ocean is an incredible ballad there from Rick, really getting a chance to shine, doing the vocals, and I think he really savored that, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, no, it was great. Love a good Jeb vocal.
Both
Jeb vocals are inspiring, right?
Right, they are, and he crushed it. And again, as always, Casbah is a crowd favorite wherever you go. Especially, it felt like a lot of the crowd last night. Again, maybe seeing their first Goose show. There were a lot of younger people in the crowd. I noticed that. So people were very, very excited for Casbah. A lot of singing along. So it was fun. But let's get into the big boy here. My personal highlight of the show and this set, this Zalt. This is, I think, pretty clearly the GOAT Zalt at this point.
Yes.
But they're finally taking it out for a walk. That was clear very quickly. But Zach, I'm curious. Let's dive into this Zalt. What are your thoughts here?
This thing has legs. This is going to be the new jam vehicle for them for a while, I think. There's so many different places that they seem to be able to go with it if they want. They can go dark and dirty. They could really jam it out. It's got a lot of different segments, and so a lot of room to play around. All those different teases throughout was really fun. And I think that lends itself to the idea that, like, we could do a lot of different stuff here. There's a lot of ways to go. Great vocals, great musicality in the song. I'm really excited to hear that one come to life, over the next couple of months as they really bring it to life.
100%. One of the things I was hoping for last week in Chicago when they played it was, are they going to jam it out? And they kept it, pretty type 1 in that version. And last night, as soon as the jam started, instead of just ripping into it like they have in the past, they took it down pretty quickly. And I was like, all right, here we go. And I love, we've talked a lot about, they've been exploring major key spaces a lot on this tour. And so getting into this darker zone for most of this jam as they did was really cool. Yeah, that Crazy Train tease, Rick did it, and then he and Peter came back to it like 30 seconds later, which was pretty fun. But yeah, a lot going on in here. And then the way that, they're in this darkness and they're driving forward, and suddenly just Rick is just like, all right, screw it, let's open the hose and just full hose jam for, you know, the last few minutes of this before the re-entry, Little Secret Agent Man. But I love when they do this kind of juxtaposition of dark jam and then just huge euphoric peak to bring it back home. I thought it was amazing. Neil, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this song so versatile right now, can be used in so many different ways. Like Brought the House Down the other night, like coming late in the show. We're closing the first set with it now. It can really go anywhere and do anything at this point. This version reminds me of the very first version that we heard, where it just kind of was a jammer, you know? And it's the first time it was just like a straight up jammer since the first time it was played, in my opinion. And it did all that it needed to do, man. It was killer. And they really need another first set closer because there's only a handful of them, and they really reuse the same songs as first set closers quite a bit. SOS comes to mind immediately. So Ready is like the other big one that shows up often.
Pancakes,
so, you know,
I was
if you
shocked we didn't
slide
get
that one
last
into
night.
that slot, yeah. Although this one kind of has the versatility of Pancakes, it kind of goes in a bunch of different places pretty commonly now. So yeah, man, this can go anywhere and it rules. So I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
And this one is special. You're right. And when I listened to it on the drive to work this morning, I didn't actually listen to the show as it was happening last night, but listened to it today. And I was like, oh man, like this is good. Like you said, the hose, I was like driving my car, like tapping my steering wheel, like
did you have
not quite
get to
touching
the
the
parking
roof.
lot and jamming out again while you waited?
I finished the first set before I got to work. So that was good. But
Nice.
yeah, man, killer, absolutely killer way to close out the set. Excellent vibe. Jam of the night, in my opinion. But
I will agree with you there.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But yeah, hell of a way to close the set. You know, again, it was amazing looking at the clock and being like, wait, I don't need to worry about how much time is left until curfew. That's like such a liberating feeling, because every show I'm like, you know, how much time do they have for set break? Like, you know, last night, if the 10 o'clock curfew had been a thing, set 2 and encore only would have been 70 minutes. But thankfully, we didn't have to deal with
a lot of music.
That was
a lot
nice.
of music in that second
set break. Within a minute of them walking off stage, it felt like 400 people tried to move their way up to the very front of the floor, which immediately reminded me why I don't actually like being up close. So you know, shout out to everyone in Chicago who didn't do that at set break. But yeah, it was interesting. Zach, you ended up pretty quickly once the second set started heading back, you know, to where there was more room to boogie. You like to get down, and you need a little more space than we had at the second set there.
For sure. You know, I think it'd be interesting to take a poll and see from some concert goers, you know, can you save spot for your friend who went to the bathroom, or, you know, is it a move your feet, lose your seat type scenario in the world these days? Because it was pretty cutthroat up there, and it got pretty tight. And yeah, I get
Utah doesn't mess around.
No, people were not messing around, and they were not. They weren't unfriendly, but they were unabashed in their aggressiveness. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. But we get another pretty much right on the nose 30-minute set break. I wonder if like SK is standing back there with a stopwatch. Like they walk off stage, it's like 30 minutes. Like, you know. But it was pretty good.
Still, you know, baffled how they get this done now. Like, is there like a shot collar that they have on
like for Rick?
On Rick, just like put it on immediately when he comes off the stage and be like 30 minutes on the nose.
Right.
It's just it's zapping, nuts.
Yeah.
I'd like how much better he is at that right now. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, let's get into this second set here. And I think we need to talk about this whole first like hour kind of as one segment. There's a lot to dive into, but this Madhavan Mist Kylie Echo. Now I will say initially, you know, as the first couple of segues started happening, as I tend to do, I was like, oh, like 13-minute Madhavan, you know, a 14-minute Mist, Kylie, like, all right, what are we doing here? But kind of zooming out and looking back on it in hindsight, this is a really good hour of music, and the segues, every single one of them is amazing. Like that's something that they've been killing lately. Like, you know, so in the past we've talked about like, you know, oh, they were so close to having this perfect segue and they kind of like hard stopped and then went into the song instead. And last night was just like seamless. Like the Madhavan Mist segue, listening back to that this morning, I was like, wow, okay, that was really, really cool. But let's start with just the Madhavan, just talking about it, just so we can chunk this out a little. 2-guitar bliss jam. Yes. Zach, what were your thoughts
Otherwise
on
known as Lead the Way.
Otherwise known as Lead the Way.
It was, I mean, to my ears, what I hear, and Zach, I'm curious, like what your feeling was in the room, but when I listened to that this morning, that I was like, holy crap, they're playing Lead the Way. They've just segued into the Lead the Way jam, but that just constituted all of like what the Madhavan jam was. And you know me, I love the Lead the Way jam. It's great. And it sounded almost note for note to me, like just plucked right out of Lead the Way and dropped in there, and fine, because it was killer. And like you were saying, Ryan, bunch of shorter jams, but they all sounded so good, like threaded together. So, not hating on the shorter jams. This was all good stuff.
Yeah, it was really easy to get lost kind of in the music. Where are we? What are we doing? As Ryan alluded to, just transitioning and segueing in and out at will between all of those jams and the song structures there for a solid hour. Yeah, I really got lost, and you weren't sure if it was Into the Mist, if they were, rolling into the Lead the Way jam again. And so it was sort of almost confusing in a way, not knowing, and maybe they didn't know where they were either. Maybe they were just letting it fly and true improv on stage. Either way, it was a fun way to spend an hour.
Yeah.
But I felt maybe a little bit, it didn't have the hyper focus of the first set. It was a lot more free form and just kind of letting the music go. And so that was fun. True improv, I think, for most of that second set.
I want to call to attention, if you guys listen to the beginning of this Madhavan jam, you'll hear some like sparkly noises. I don't know what, I'm assuming it's a Chase Bliss pedal because that's such a Chase Bliss effect, but Peter has something that he was doing. He like got on his knees with the vintage vibe and was like playing with some effect and just made this like twinkly synth sounding noise. And I was just like, what? Like, how? Why? This is amazing. Like, where is this coming from? How is this electric piano making this noise? But I love it. And I love, when you get a 2-guitar jam like this and Peter's just laying down these chords underneath Rick's soloing, but is also like turning around. And while he's playing, he's like, setting something up on the OB6. He's like playing it with his headstock, like turning a knob with the headstock of his guitar and then turning around and doing the same thing on the Moog. And I'm just like, how do you have the room to do all of that at once in your brain? Like,
I would lose track of what I was doing, to be honest with you. It is impressive, the quantity of things that he can get done in a moment on stage.
Yeah. I was regretting not taking a video after that because, people were posting like on Twitter the other day, there's like that tweet, like, what is the definition of locked in or whatever? And I just wanted to like quote tweet it with like, a 20-second clip of what Peter was doing there. It's just like,
or it could be the opposite of locked in, where like he just has no control over his
your
decision-making
ADHD
ability in the moment. He's just like doing one thing after another. He's like, ooh, this is a good thing. Like, let's try that.
But it sounded amazing. Yeah. It sounded amazing. And the energy in the room at like the crescendo of the Madhavan jam peak was just like everybody was like losing it. I was wondering if you could hear it on the soundboard. You couldn't really, but it was a great moment in terms of energy. And now, Zach, I'm curious, as we go into Mist here, by this point, I think you left around the beginning of the Madhavan jam. Where did you end up towards the rear of the venue? How was the sound? How was the space?
I was unmoored for a while, trying to find a place to settle in. The sound, if you get to the soundboard, really deteriorated rapidly. The venue kind of fans out under those balconies, and you got poor sight lines, and you're out of the way of the towers, and so the sound was. You had the good spot for the sound, no doubt. Really, really crystal clear there. It kind of muddied. So I eventually found a little spot on Trevor's side, about halfway back, where there was a little room. The door was open, a breeze was blowing in, and there were some people getting down. And I was able to kind of dig in there and settle back in for the show from Echo pretty much on then. But otherwise, I
Nice.
kind of roamed around, tried to see what could be seen, and yeah, it was rough in the back. I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's really why I was like committed to sticking it out, even with how packed it got. And it did. It thinned the crowd thinned out a little towards the end of the set, which where's everyone going? I don't know.
They were
But yeah, right. They're like Thatch starts, and they're like, got to beat the traffic.
They were
But
gone. They missed some fire too.
yeah, but talking about the missed Kylie here, John Chuli in the chat bringing up the point that's on all of our minds here. After the Raleigh Pancakes and the Portland Wisteria, where they did this like When the Saints Go Marching In adjacent jam, they did it again last night. But finally, Rick actually teased When the Saints Go Marching In. It was like catharsis. I was like, finally. And the crowd started singing along, and there was like a really terrifying like 2 seconds where I thought they were going to keep singing When the Saints Go Marching In like a second time after Rick was done teasing it. I was like, don't throw off the band. Like, this jam is really good. Luckily, everybody didn't do that. But yeah.
I was amazed when they played the Saints Go Marching In. I knew this was coming because I had actually read some chats before I had listened to it, but I was like, damn it, because we've talked about this and I've disagreed with you. So I'm just owning where I was wrong here. This is rare.
Wow.
So I'm just going to do this.
That is
podcast.
rare.
And terrifying. Yeah, so I've disagreed with you, and I said I don't think that's really When the Saints Go Marching In, and I feel like this was Rick proving his point, which is like that's absolutely what this is, and we're going to do it again. And it's pretty neat. It's been pretty cool all 3 times they've done it. Raleigh Pancakes and then Portland Wisteria, right? So yeah, cool.
And then Kylie, I knew was coming because friend of the pod John Mayer, with an H. Friend of the pod, John Mayer, had told me that he heard them sound checking Kylie, Casbah, and Inside Out. And so, as soon as they started Mist, I was like, all right, like, this is going into Kylie 100%. Kylie, again, not my favorite cover, as we all know here on this podcast. We are not the biggest Kylie fans. But yeah, okay, we know you are. But again, crowd loves it. Crowd was singing along. There was like the balcony really extended like all the way to like level with Peter on the side of the stage. So there were like people up there who were like really vibing. Peter was feeding off of them. There was also a group kind of just in front of us who were all wearing like fake mustaches, and Peter saw them within like the first 3 seconds of the show and gave them like so that was pretty funny. But Kylie was fun for its 11 minutes, and then perfect segue into Echo. This is my jam of the set right here. As good as Madhavan was, as good as Mist was, this Echo is like, this is ridiculous. This is full band jamming at its best. This is what Goose has been working towards and perfecting this year, this tour. We talk about that. We've been talking a lot the past week about that quote unquote sophisticated level of jamming. This is it. This is all of them locking in, like really just also Trevor, Rick, and Peter. The 3 of them working together in this jam is really something special. And I was blown away in the moment. Like, it doesn't go too far away from Echo. Like, I would say it's like very type 1.5, but the build and just like how they're doing it and how they get to this peak is phenomenal. Zach, what did you think of this Echo?
I enjoyed it. But I really thought there was a lot of steam lost after the Kylie Minogue cover. Maybe it was just personally. And so then I was I was having a hard time locking in, but I know they did bring it back around pretty strong. But it was kind of meandered, I felt like, a little bit. And I guess I don't have a real strong opinion one way or another. I appreciated it, and I knew it was time to get back down to business. I feel like it's sick the return of getting back to business, and which it did.
Neil?
Yeah, just to continue to like emptying the tank of bangers. Yeah, it's funny because I've been spending a lot of time looking at set lists on this particular tour because I'm currently engaged in a battle of set list prediction with another member of the community.
Yeah.
No name shall be named. Currently 10 points back. But So I was kind of expecting this echo. I was kind of expecting Thatch, expecting Madhavan. So they were doing all of this because, like, I feel like these 3 songs they felt they couldn't play in Montana, so they just had to get them out now. And that's actually kind of the vibe for the second set. This echo is good. Don't have specific thoughts on it because I've only listened to it once so far. But it fit the thread of what was going on. Usually second sets have an arc to them where like they kind of slow down for a little bit. That actually has changed a little bit on this tour in particular, where we've had a couple second sets where it's just like bangers, bangers, bangers.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening here. Yeah, no cooldown, just like dance parties. I don't know if bangers is the right word, but you know what I'm getting at. They're playing the fast-paced stuff. They want you to dance. That echo was there for that reason, I feel like, just to kind of get back into the jamming after the extended Kylie, which I think was like around 13 minutes or so, quite a bit. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And then, we get Dark Horse, which was great little treat for the Utah crowd. And then Thatch, kind of figured this one was coming, based on the fact that, they played it last Thursday in Chicago, had been a few shows, and theoretically it would come due this Thursday or Friday. But obviously, based on the boner Thatch from last year, they're not going to play another Thatch at Kettle House.
Right.
Save it.
And they couldn't play another Madhavan too,
Oregon,
for that matter, because they had played it the last 2 times they were there. So like, you knew that one was coming tonight too. So
yeah. So very excited about this Thatch, obviously, because it's Thatch, and I'm excited every time they play it. Some really cool, little dark grooving interplay in this. Not too long, pretty concise, 13-minute version, but Peter doing his mad scientist shit again. Like the stuff he's doing, he had one hand on the clav, one hand on the moog, like doubling them, creating textures and just like all sorts of shit. It's like it's ridiculous. It's frankly ridiculous. What did you think of the end of the second set here, Zach? Dark Horse and Thatch.
Oh, I thought the Thatch came out of nowhere, to be honest. Just kind of tagged it on there, and I think you could call that a banger. Really thick and
100%.
funky. Here's where Trevor earned his MVP status that you gave him. Just super thick and fun. For me, that was the highlight of the second set, because they really just seemed to go all in on it. And like you said, yeah, Peter really going out there, layering in lots and lots of different sounds. And I just really think that's a fun song.
Yeah, it's great. Neil?
Yeah, I mean, not much more to add in that one. Like, I kind of saw this one coming, and you were kind of, like I said, you got like abbreviated versions because I think they were just trying to get the plays of these songs in. But I just want to kind of underscore what you said about like Peter and his keyboard playing, because it continues to level up, and in different ways, right? You think about jam band keyboard players, you just think about instrumental prowess, right? And like you say, like, oh, that guy's a sick keyboard player or whatever. But it's not, chops isn't just like touching all of the keys really fast or like having really great phrasing or anything like that. I think that stuff that Peter is doing now is an exceptional strong point of this band. And it has nothing to do with him being like a sick piano player or like a sick organ player. He's no John Badesky, but he's doing shit that is incredibly hard and amazing that makes this band sound so good. And so, yeah, I'm just glad that you brought that up, because he really is an exceptional keyboard player, but not in the way that you would expect to describe an exceptional keyboard player. And like, I think that's on display here. He's just a killer musician and is making a lot of jams sound so much better on this tour just because of his ability to kind of add different elements to the sound. Not necessarily being like a soloist, but just really adding the layers and making it sound excellent.
Layers and textures, baby. That's the name of the game. And then Encore, tie up that nice loose end from earlier. Butter Rum Madhavan, which was pretty great. We had a funny moment where they kind of started to build up, some steam in the Butter Rum jam, and John and I turned to each other like at pretty much the same time and go like, "Are they going into Madhavan?" Like, so that was funny. But love that they did that. Love that they gave us the ending. I feel like leaving a Madhavan unfinished is not something that happens very often, if at all. But hey, leave a butter rum unfinished every once in a while, why not? But always fun. Crushed it. Zach, your thoughts on the encore?
Encore was solid. The buttered rum is getting taken out for a walk a little bit these days, huh? And so that's cool. A little bit out of its standard structure. And it's another one of those just really fun, enjoyable tracks. And everybody's grooving and smiling. And I just really like the cohesion that it brought. It sort of tied a bow on the whole show for me. And then, yeah, the Mata Von Ender was just a couple more minutes of just pure rage. Rick just absolutely shredding and just kind of leaving me hungry for an 8-hour drive up to Missoula.
That's where we are right now. We're right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Neil, anything to add here?
No, not much to add other than this is a killer encore. There are some people who will occasionally record this podcast and they will poo-poo with the butter rum. I think you can't really do it anymore. You can dislike the song. I understand that. The lyrics are a little silly, but the jams that come out of this song, especially this year, are exceptional and great. And then you get like this combined with like a Matavon topper. It's like a total mic drop on the show. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely great. So
I'm watching
nice fiery ending to the show.
To you saying that butter rum isn't bad, and it's very entertaining.
The jams and butter rum have always been good. I've been doing this since 2022. You should know me well enough by now.
I know.
I have been saying this for a while. I think I started doing it just to be a total counterpoint to Jive Goose because he hates the rum, But I'm just kind of doing it just to be like, a contrarian to some degree. But now at this point, I really do believe it.
Yeah.
These are not, I say things all the time that people think I will regret. I stand by my words. I totally do. And I think this is a killer encore. I don't care what anybody says.
No, it was a great encore, great way to finish the show. And I do want to point out, one of the things I've said with their time management, while it's been very good on this tour, one of the things that I've said recently that Goose should do is if a curfew is 11, make showtime 7 o'clock instead of 7:30. The 4-hour window versus the 3.5-hour window makes such a difference. And you look at last night, they had no curfew. They could have done whatever they wanted. 6:30 showtime. They walked off stage for the encore just before 10:30. So right in that window, and the show was an amazing length of time. The second set was 80 minutes or however long it was, right? It was perfect. So I would encourage Goose, hey guys, when you're booking 2025 dates, let's do 4 hours before the curfew. It's the winning amount of time.
We'll see. We shall see. Well, I just want to say before we wrap this thing up that I'm very excited for you guys because probably better than, and I think this is probably why they designed it this way, probably better than the show in Utah and then the 2 shows in Montana. You guys get to do the drive from Salt Lake to Missoula, which I've done half of that drive, and holy shit, man, it's awesome. So you guys are in the middle of it, and I'm super jealous.
I'm currently
it's got to be
in the middle of flat nothing, but
you won't be shortly, and it will look amazing. So enjoy that drive.
Eventually, you get into the mountains. Looking forward to that. Yeah, and Zach, thank you so much for joining us a little last minute today. Appreciate you pulling over and taking the time, and we're excited to have you back on Friday. When you are prepared for the pod, as we talked about last night.
I'm going to break out my critical listening ears a little more tomorrow night. Maybe take a few notes. I wasn't quite ready for this.
Nailed it.
But happy to chat with you guys and fluff the band that we all love and critique a few of the points and just be real about it. So, really looking forward to seeing you guys. Well, you and maybe John, Lisa, tomorrow somewhere along the way. So.
Oh yeah. There we go. No notes needed. Nailed it.
Thanks
for joining us, Zach. Thank you, everybody, for watching today's episode.
Neil.
If you're traveling to Montana, if you're there already, lucky you. But if you're traveling up there still, safe travels. We're going to get back on the road. We will see you guys on Friday afternoon at 3:30 Eastern, 1:30 Mountain Time to recap Montana Night 1. And will they continue the streak of never miss a Montana Goose show? That is the question we will be answering on Friday afternoon.
I've been doing pretty well.
Science point to yes. Anyway,
yes.
Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on Friday.